Guys, for this video, I'm going to be modifying the UDR with some nice aluminum, a nice aluminum rear axle. Let's get this thing put in. That's the stock housing, and I'm pretty sure I've got all the bolts there. So we're looking at 139.2 grams. The new aluminum housing comes in at 281 grams. This is fresh out of the package. No bolts removed or anything. So it's quite a bit heavier. The new housing is absolutely beautiful. I mean, phenomenal. I mean, the work on it is absolutely good. One of my biggest reasons for getting this is actually that the Planetary loads into the front right here. So there's no more of a split case like what's on the stock Traxxas axle. Plus, hopefully this will seal a little bit better. We'll find out soon. You know, as far as keeping the dirt and sand out, which I've had a constant problem with. But there's another benefit to having the aluminum here. This will actually also help pull some heat away from the Planetary, because the Planetaries are known to get a little bit hot in these trucks no matter what kind of grease you use. So hopefully this will help radiate that heat out and actually help have a cooler rear end. I know it's sure going to look cooler. Haha. With a heavier aluminum rear end, it's probably not ideal for racing, because when you hit a bump and this axle goes up, you're going to have more weight and mass pushing up into the shocks and directly to the chassis. So this will probably act, as far as suspension action, probably act slower when you hit a bump, you know, than what the lighter plastic axle would have. So I'm not sure exactly how this is going to affect the performance, because the truck is fairly heavy. However, I did want to point that out and mention it to you guys. The only old parts that I'm using are the axle shafts, and that's because, well, they're fine. These I got off of eBay. It was like 40 bucks, maybe 45 ships or something like that. And these are actually new takeouts of a new UDR. So basically pretty much brand new gears and bearings are going into my rear axle. The new aluminum housing came with 4 shims. Don't know where they go yet, but we're going to find out. With it apart right here, you can see how the Planetary just simply slides in right into here with your pinion gear sticking out there. And there's your input shaft. Now, well, your input shaft comes out of that, obviously, right? Because you got to hook your drive shaft to it. But those bearings actually hold the outside bearing in place. That's nice. The ring gear and spool go in right here, and they're secured very securely with some bolts. And I'm probably going to add a little thread lock in there just to make sure that everything stays put. Because as you bolt aluminum to aluminum, sometimes it has a tendency to come loose. But also very nice. And the inside. This is going to get greased up crazy. Now also, with this right here, you can see there is a little bit of a lip there that actually slides in. And it's got a little bit of slop there, so I'm probably going to add a little bit of sealant right here just to give it a little extra seal. This is where the washers go. When I removed the bearing caps, these were already in place. So I'm just going to simply put it back together with them in place and see how the mesh is. But this can actually adjust to a degree the actual mesh of the pinion and ring gear. Before you put the ring gear and spool in place, make sure you drop the pinion and bearing down in there. And then once you tighten it down, you can check to see if there's any binding here. I didn't have any with the 4 washers that the case already had. So there it is. It is thread locked in place. It feels good. Now it's time to work on the Planetary. Time to slide the Planetary in place. As long as the splines are lined up, it should go right in. Wow, that is a perfect fit. Wow. Now, I'm going to add some grease to this, but the fitment is so good around this ring gear that it's just absolutely going to awesomely help dissipate the heat, because that's what aluminum does. It transfers heat very well. So this should have an overall cooler Planetary ring gear set, or Planetary gear set, sun gear, all that wonderful stuff. But anyway, it should run quite a bit cooler. This is how your front input bearing is held in place with these 3 simple little screws, and it works really, really well. Nice and clean. This is it, ready to go into the housing. I did have to add those shims, so there's 2 shims per bolt just so I could get a little bit of looseness there. You don't really want it binding, and this is a bit tighter than stock, but I can still turn it by hand, so it should not be a problem at all. And it could be because I'm using all brand new stuff, you know. So, but anyway, I'm going to grease this up and get this put into the housing. Now, there is nothing stopping you from putting this in forwards or backwards. If you put this in the wrong way and you throttle up, the front's going to be pulling and the rear's going to be pulling in reverse, which would make for some awesome videos, I agree, but it really would not drive very well, and I'm not planning on doing it. So anyway, let me put this back into there. So now it's ready for the axle shafts, the outer parts, and all that stuff. Man, this thing is really, really nice. I know I've probably said that enough, right? I gotta say, everything bolted in wonderfully. Those nice MFR links, upper and lowers, and this nice aluminum rear axle housing. Wow, looks good. From another angle, you can see the MFR down there. Man, it looks great. Now it's time to put some tires on it. Oh wow, beautiful. I am happy with that. It even looks good like this. It's not dirty yet, but still, it looks pretty darn good. Now that you guys have seen the upgraded axle housing, one of the reasons why I did that to begin with was you can't really service the Planetary because of that design right there. You basically have to take the entire axle assembly apart to get to it. With the new design, you can just simply take out the front nose cap and pull the Planetary out and service it. Nice, simple, and easy. So hopefully I won't have this again. What happened was the inner bearing that went right into there blew up. The little balls went out, went into the gears, and just blew everything up. So hopefully with the new design I can get in there and service it easier, so I will get in there and service it easier. Is it worth it? We'll find out. So the goal here is to see just how much the heat dissipates throughout the axle housing. After quite a bit of running, about 10 minutes or so, 12 minutes or so, you can feel the heat from the Planetary has actually traveled all the way throughout the whole axle housing. This helps dissipate the heat from the Planetary. Let's go ahead and see where we're at on temperature. 92.4 degrees, 33.5 Celsius. So not bad at all. Let's look at it out here. We're still at 86 and the ambient temperature right now is about 67 degrees out here. So yeah, that aluminum housing is doing a great job as far as transferring the heat away from the Planetary. Real happy with this rear axle housing. So yeah, the aluminum housing pulled the heat away from the Planetary. Great. You guys saw that with the temperature probe. You can see the temperatures out. The ambient temperature around was like 67 degrees, so it was a really nice day to be out there. So I really like the axle housing. In the description below is a link directly to it. If you decide to go for one of these axle housings at $208, yeah, they aren't cheap. If you decide to go for one, use the link in the description, because there's another version out there that actually has the stock design as far as how the Planetary goes in, and it clams together and then bolts to the axle housing just like the stock one. You don't really want that one. You want the one where it comes into the front like the one that you saw in this video. So again, if you do decide to spend the money and get this axle housing for yours, use the link in the description below. That way you get the right one, because if not, you buy the wrong one, well, I don't really see much of a benefit other than the heat dissipation. Because with that front loader, like I mentioned earlier in the video, you can service the Planetary so much easier without having to take everything apart. So all in all, I like it, and it was worth it for me. So guys, thank you all for watching.